Hey everybody, it's Master Gallengeist here, bringing you my review of the latest episode of Supernatural, The Trap. And, god damn it, I am fucking getting tired of this. This is essentially almost like the third time that this fucking conflict with God has been semi-soft rebooted. Why? Because of everything that happened in here, pretty much got us to a state that would have been perfectly alright at the beginning of the season. I just. When after you're done watching an episode of any kind of medium, any kind of show, any kind of thing, and you're actively contemplating, like, sticking your dick in a toaster, taking a pipe cleaner dipped in the extract of a ghost pepper and just shoving it and ripping around in your urethra and just being like, yeah, that would have been preferable to this. Granted, it's not that I was tortured with this, but when I actively want to go to God and get a refund of the time that I've invested in this back, like, I want that hour back. I want it. That was a waste, and it was like, fuck you. Woo. So that's just me right off the bat, because this was almost the most blatant use of God as a stand-in for the writers. Okay? Because whenever you have a higher tier entity like God in the story, you have to make that entity feel like its own. Otherwise, if you're not careful, you're going to make it feel like the writers, and anything starts to fall off the tracks there. And you kind of see some weird shit going on in here, especially with like how Sam and Dean are acting, and also their actors of acting them. Because I understand this is the last season for this show, and they've run with these characters a long time, and they got a lot of stuff going on with them. But there's just certain scenes, mainly with Sam in here, that just felt fucking off. I understand it's an alternate kind of thing going on, but. So, there are two main storylines going on, and they eventually converge. One is that God has trapped Sam and Eileen. The other one is Dean and Cass going into purgatory to get a Leviathan Blossom. How to do this. Okay, let's go with Sam and Eileen's first. We see that Chuck takes them, does his gloaty kind of shit and everything, and we get him do his villainous monologue of, oh yeah, I couldn't see you, so I pretty much pushed you along and made you fall in love with Eileen and use Eileen so that way I know what the fuck's going on with there, and I kind of need to get that piece of me out of you. And he pretty much digs in there, and he's like trying to figure out what's in there. He's like, oh, you can't get that out, huh? And pretty much forces Eileen to pretty much go and dig there around. But he comes to the epiphany that for some reason it is Hope keeping it in there. Why? Fuck if I know. Because that is not explained at all. I mean, the metaphysics of an omnipotent and omniscient being having a part of itself cut off and inside of a being that isn't that would be an interesting thing to explore and really kind of explain what the rules going on. But nah, since Sam pretty much shot a bit of himself into me, and that kind of put me in him, reasons. Now, I understand that you can't explain everything. I'm not talking about putting down that Chuck goes into this casino, pulls out a PowerPoint that's got fucking bullet lists, charts, and shit. There's going sometimes too far into the weeds. But if you essentially just airplane view and piss out nowhere, that doesn't help the situation either. There is a medium. And this was just like, nope. So, then he decides to start doing his thing of trying to tear down Sam's hope, because he has hope that Dean and Cass will come and save his ass. Yeah, okay, usually that happens. Then he's pretty much goes into them pretty much being Prometheus, and doing all their kind of things of breaking the rules and why he likes them so much. But he then shows them what the consequences of their actions would be if they won. This comes into another kind of problem because we are then shown what would happen in the future, mainly in like 2021 and like tail end of 2020 and 2021. And it sucks, but it's like, okay, let's run through what happens first and then God's explanation of why it happens. We see that the Winchesters, Eileen, and Cass are just pretty much kicking back. And then we see that Jody calls them and says that Claire's dead. They went to a vampire nest, but there was a fuck ton more of them than they were anticipating, and that just starts the chain reaction. Now, granted, Claire as a character would have felt bad for something to happen to her, but I'm like, okay, you're not starting me off on the best foot with how you have handled that character, so I'm like, okay, fine. And God gives him this pocket watch that he's able to go through and see what goes on. Shifting on further as they keep losing people, monsters are going crazier and crazier. Dean pretty much wanting to give up and not do anything with it because they've won. Of course, we get to a point where Sam's like, no, this isn't my brother. We don't quit. What about Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid and all that stuff? And Dean's just like, well, we lost. It's like, all right, fine. We shift over. Sam's getting ready to go after a nest. Dean goes with him, and then we go to the last part because the watch stops at that, and we see that Sam and Dean have barricaded themselves in the room. They want to go out with their boots on, and we see that the people coming at them are hunters, and that Sam and Dean became vampires. Now, this was one of the goofiest kind of fucking scenes because of how they keep showing them with the fangs. It just looked fucking off and was kind of more funny to me than sad. I'm almost like, Sam, you're gonna lose hope over this? I mean, granted, they went out with their boots on. It makes some kind of poetic sense that they would become the monsters that they hunted, and Dean kills Jody while Bobby chops off Sam's head. It's just, the way the teeth thing was going on was just, it looked just ridiculous. I don't know if it's like the desensitizing of they have used vampires so goddamn much that it was just like, okay. And why would it only be like monsters going kind of nuts and all that? I would almost would have picked them to be turned into demons or something like that, or some other kind of crazy monster or whatnot. I mean, there's like a ton of monsters, man. Really? But evidently God then goes into this spiel saying that without me, the law of nature would take effect and that monsters would then rule everything and darkness would go into effect. I'm like, what? So you're telling me that the status quo that we've been in this series for 15 seasons, is this shit under control? What? No. Holy fucking horseshit ass bitty tits, no. What the fuck? Fucking hell. Almost every fucking Tuesday now, monsters or some kind of monster-like creature is trying to enforce a fucking apocalypse. And you're telling me after you have been put into put into your own little cage, because also another part of this thing is that Cass took the mark and had to be put into a mallet box because he went fucking crazy. Woo! And you're telling me that they just fucking, you essentially upped the Michael scenario where he was going to fucking actually help them take over the fucking world because humans can get like fucked. God. It was like the simplest answer that I think they could provide, but I'm just like, I don't know how. The only reason Sam fell for it is because the plot demanded that Sam fell for it. Okay? The only way that this certain plot was able to move forward is that Sam, who has up until this point been the person that has had hope and everything and would have pretty much said, fuck you to Chuck, and has been saying fuck you to Chuck, everything just flipped on a dime, and I'm like, okay, if you're Team Free Will, why the fuck would you even believe that shit? Especially coming from the manipulative dick shit that wants you to do what he wants. So that whole thing occurred. Now we have to go to the other thing because that's kind of where it starts to sync up. Dean and Cass go into the rift, and they've got like 10 hours to find the Leviathan Blossom before the rift closes. So they walk around, blah, 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 run into a Leviathan, and he is able to exposition away that a Leviathan Blossom is what occurred when a Leviathan dies and it rots in purgatory and then it blooms. And they're like, alright, fine. Cass and Dean pretty much start to hash out what's going on, where Cass is like, yeah, I apologized and you didn't accept it because you're an angry little bitch. Paraphrasing here, but that's essentially what Cass went on him for. Dean's like, alright, whatever, fine. Then they get to the Leviathan Blossom place, and there's an angel trap because, spoiler alert, greatest hits. We learned that Benny is supposedly dead, though granted, I don't know why you would trust this fucking random ass red shirt Leviathan dude. And that Eve wants Cass, but not Dean. Even though they were like instrumental in like fucking around with her shit, but... So, yeah, and then the Leviathan knocks out Dean with the weakest fucking hit possible. Now, I say this because it didn't even look like it should have knocked his ass out. Especially not for like 10 fucking hours. Because he wakes up, gets out of the circle, goes into the woods, and he sees that he's got like 30 fucking minutes left. I'm like, what? Well, all the blooms were destroyed and everything, and he's just like walking around, and then... because there are certain plot reasons that have to be tied up at this point, Dean decides to pray to Cass and explain to him that he does forgive Cass and that he's sorry that he gets angry and that the anger took over for everything going on. I'm like, yeah, you can kind of see that with like how John raised him and everything, and him getting emotional, pretty much being like, you're my brother kind of stuff, and crying and all that. It's like, okay, that kind of works. I just wish that it wouldn't have been here, and it wouldn't have felt that this conflict was so forced. That's my biggest issue. I don't have a problem with Cass and Dean butting heads with these kinds of things. It's the execution and how it's been going down that is my biggest issue with it. So he's walking around, he's got about like 2 minutes, and ass just pops up like getting pulled out of an ass. And like, yeah, I was able to save this from getting squished and all that shit. So let's get out of here. He's like, yeah, I heard you. I heard your prayer and everything. They're able to make the whole little Orby thing, and it's got to be either Sam or Dean that cracks open that thing. And of course, they pop up, and at this point, they go to the casino. They're able to find where Sam is, and they go there. And of course, that's where Sam loses hope, decides not to crush the thing. God gets put all together and everything, and he's like, "Oh yeah, those visions you saw, those were memories of your other selves. You guys are going to kill each other pretty much like that anyway. So whatever, screw you." And we did see like Dean punch Chuck, Chuck punch Dean, and Dean just pretty much used the boilerplate, yeah, we're going to defeat you and we're not going to make it that way. And now we've got a fully powered god into effect. And it's like, okay, now this is a pretty kind of messed up fight. And we're going to have to see how that works out, because God's already been manipulating stuff as it is. Chuck has been manipulating it with like Eileen and everything. So how him being fully powered now is going to be... he could just do so much different kind of things. It's like, all right, you're really gonna have to work to kind of fix this thing out. So, of course, we get the fall out of this. They're back at the bunker. Eileen's like, I don't know what I've been feeling is real for you, which is a valid reaction to what's been going on. And of course, they kiss and everything, and Sam's like, yeah, that was real and all that. But of course, Eileen goes off because she doesn't know what's real anymore. I'm like, yeah, I understand that. But of course, your plot usefulness has been used up at this point, so you gotta go be put into a back burner place in case we decide to pull you out again. So Sam goes in, pretty much tries to explain himself. Like, listen, I believed him. It looked nasty, it looked bad, and everything. We have to find another way. He's like, yeah, I believe you. You're good. All right, let's do that. And that's it. I'm like, okay, why didn't we start the season this way? Why did we have to go this long to get into this point? It's like, okay, so everything we've been doing has been just kind of like almost just stretching a plot. Kind of like when Bilbo Baggins talking in Lord of the Rings. It was like butter spread over too much bread. And we get the tease at the end that Billy, we've got Jack looking around, and Billy says that it's time. So it's like, okay, finally, we're going to get some movement on that, hopefully. Though, of course, because we got to see that tease for the next episode, it's essentially kind of like a redo of the mystery spot where everything just starts kind of going wrong for Sam and Dean. Where they're trying to do their usual kind of stuff, but all this bad shit starts happening to them. I'm like, wow, you're really going for the greatest hits kind of stuff here, you know? Just fuck. This execution has been this show's bane. And then just how fucking screwing with the lore and just forcing characters to do whatever kind of plot thing you want. Just, this really needs to be shown next to like Game of Thrones to show what not to do to characters and lore and plot. It just, and it comes down to how it's executed. I mean, granted, there could be certain bad elements that could be executed great, and then you're like, okay, I'm fine with it. It's not the best, but okay. But when you're just, oh, and sometime in March, this will shift to Mondays at 8. Because I didn't know that. And I'm like, okay, that's really weird to shift it from Thursdays at 8 to Mondays at 8, but fine, whatever. It's the last season. Fuck if we care anymore. So I just thought I'd put that in there as well, since I just want this to be over, and I'm like plotting out what's going on for how many more episodes I've got to get through. I'm like, Jesus. I want that time back. If I, like, granted, I love the characters of Sam and Dean, but I would have taken them being, like, completely and utterly taken out and destroyed. What? This is just like character assassination, man. It's like they just keep flip-flopping, and they're not going to be given the ending that they deserve. And I would take a Tony Stark ending to them where they heroically sacrificed themselves as long as it fit who they were and their core journey and what it was that they wanted to accomplish, like Tony Stark. But we are going to get what is most likely like a Game of Thrones kind of Star Wars kind of effect where we've got ourselves into a pickle and this is pretty much the best we're gonna get. So it's going to be interesting to see how fast the Chuck stuff moves, but also this was the 9th episode. And we have had like barely any movement on anything that Billy and Jack and like Lucifer or anybody else in the Empty has been doing. So that is going to have to be rushed, and its pacing is going to be whacked ass off. Just to even get us up to speed and get them into the plot in a way that's going to be somewhat alright. So, I'm looking forward to seeing how that goes. God. This show, man. Riding that atom bomb down, baby. So those are my opinions on the episode. Tell me what you guys think in the comments below. If you liked it, if you didn't like it, if you agree with me, if you disagree with me. Also like and subscribe, and I hope you have a good day.